Hey, welcome all of you. My name is Apalak. Thank you so much for joining in. Super excited about today's conversation. I have my dear friend Radhesh. Radhesh, warm welcome.
I'm really happy to share the stage with you on this August occasion, and thank you for inviting me.
Radhesh, always a pleasure. You are a market leader of a segment which is making all the right noise right now, right? Super excited talking about the state of mid-market
Right.
And how the future beacons.
Sure.
So I'll jump right into this conversation, Radhesh. My first question to you would be, as an analyst, I've covered various segments of the market, various technology areas, right? And if I would be wrong on my part to say, the moment of the mid-market seems to be now. And I'll tell you why. This is this segment of the market which has always had the nimbleness of small organizations, yet the growth aspirations and the scale of operations of large enterprises.
Right.
Now, we both know it's not easy to manage two ends of the spectrum.
Right.
Having the nimbleness of a small organization, yet manage the scale of operations.
Right.
In your opinion, in your experience of the last so many years, how do organizations manage this?
See, very good question, and I must say, well thought out as well. If you look at the medium business segment, people tend to look at it as a whole, but you have to look at it as two ends of a spectrum and a middle in between as well. At the start or at the beginning of the medium business segment are the organizations which are trying to survive.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Right.
So what do people do for surviving? They try to maximize with what they have. Okay. And they typically tend to ensure whatever their product or offering is, all their investments and everything is aligned towards making it the best suited for their right. It's made right for the customer. Okay. From that perspective, the next stage comes in where customers in this segment are sustaining. You rightly said, when they are trying to sustain, they've gone through that curve, they've gone through that bump, wherein they've survived that, and now they're trying to slowly scale up. They're creating the revenue base for them to launch onto the next levels. Right. That is where I see a curious mix happening. In terms of investment happening, but very prudently onto the other things additional, because when you at the like I said, at the survival stage, you would see most often than not founders doing almost all kind of work, everything.
So true on this.
When it is in the sustain mode, they start taking people from outside, bringing in external expertise inside, and a little bit of starting of delegation, or let me put it in another way, a trust factor onto the external people who are not there till now, from the beginning.
Right.
Now, this is the stage, this is a very curious stage, because this is where innovation starts happening in a scale out manner. Why? Because internally what they were able to do, they reached that at the survival stage. Beyond that, if they have to go, they had to seek the external expertise. And that's where we are seeing huge jumps coming in. The next phase after that is about scaling out completely, thriving. When they move into a corporate kind of a culture, enterprise kind of a behavior, you likely said scaling out their operations, that's when they behave. They start adding more and more functional leaders, bringing more expertise. Truly, that is the state when they exit out of medium business into a corporate world. Now, in this entire spectrum, today, if you were to talk to me, this is, like they say, industrial revolution once upon a time was a great indicator of how things were pre and post. This is the time of digital revolution. Okay. Now, digital revolution in two terms. One is pre, which is pandemic. Pandemic brought about the digital revolution, and I don't want to speak a lot on that because everybody knows about it. Because digitization got adopted in a much rapid manner during this period, during the pandemic period, right? So the pre-pandemic and post-pandemic are the pre-digital and post-digital kind of an era.
Right.
And this is interesting because the companies at this point in time are trying to scale out.
Right.
Now, what is indicative here? Here, technology has been the biggest enabler across the board, helping no matter what level or what size of your organization is, but it is giving them a kind of a level playing field, giving them options which were hitherto not possible. Today it is becoming easier and manageable. And for them, last few years I've seen organizations go out. Now if you look at the startup funding and Government of India and other organizations, seed funding, VCs coming in, and well, I do agree that at this point in time it is not the same scenario, but pre-pandemic and during pandemic it was a real boom era for the medium business segment.
And Radhesh, I love the way you stitch this growth trajectory from the base of the mid market to the other end of the mid market, and their story resonates with a small company like ours.
Yeah.
We are ourselves a startup. And like you said, when you expand, you start, then the question of survival stops bothering you.
Correct.
Your aspiration to grow starts, and that can only happen through fostering a culture of innovation.
Correct.
Right, and which is where where kicks in of balancing innovation, protecting the nimbleness and so on and so forth. And you spoke about COVID. In fact, my second question is around that.
Okay.
While we've spoken a lot about COVID, and I know how much COVID, although for many COVID has been a bane, right? But for it purely in terms of technology adoption, at least as far as the India market goes, we've seen phenomenal growth trajectories. But again, now if I break down the story into three segments,
right,
and correct me if I'm wrong, Radhesh. See, there was this SMB sector now, which was affected the maximum because the touch points was very close to the real scenario of what COVID really represented. Right. And they were not in a position to deal with it as well.
Correct.
So we saw literally a huge number of SMBs literally getting wiped out.
Yes.
Right. And then there were the larger enterprises who had reached a state of plateau.
Right.
And they just were waiting for it to wean out.
Right.
The mid-market, what I have gathered, basis my understanding of the market, is the market which really grew at this point. They saw this as an opportunity to grow.
Correct.
Being, fortifying their tech buy-ins, people buy-ins, where they saw this as an opportunity. Am I off the mark? What is your experience?
I don't think you're off the mark. It is, I would put it in slightly better way. When you talked about SMB or small businesses, getting no longer existing.
Right.
It's better usage of word, right? I hate to say wiped out.
Right.
So, no longer existing. That's the reason for that is somewhere the relationships were never there in place. Okay? And if the relationships were in place, they could have been managed better even virtually.
Right.
Which is what is indicative of the medium business segment. Why? Because there are certain amount of relationships that were forged, which they were able to, carry forward from a pre-pandemic into a pandemic. We were able to carry that.
Right.
That is the reason, we were able to survive that. That medium business segment was able to survive that. And coming back to your other question was on how do you see it going forward? I think it is going to be realistic. Now, why this happened? The enterprises, if you were to look at, they all had a business continuity plan in place.
Right.
Okay. Right. Small businesses never think about business continuity.
Right.
They're surviving, trying to survive.
Yes.
Entire investment is sunk in for them. And if they are not able to connect with their customers, or their business does not hold a relevance, it became impossible for them to continue. And that's how I see it. Medium business segment, which, like I said, had two ends of the spectrum. One which had a mirror of almost a corporate influence, completely like that. They had a business continuity kind of a structure there. The lower end was innovative enough to jump onto that bandwagon, because they knew that if they had to survive, they had to cross this barrier. And they moved onto the BCP. They accelerated their BCP, which in turn helped them come out with flying colors during the pandemic, and they were able to hold on to their customer base and expand, because their Competition could not.
Very interesting that you speak about relationship. That brings me to an interesting anecdote. So, are you suggesting that, when an organization does business which is purely transactional, there always be, there's the risk of failure in contingent scenarios like what the pandemic was.
Yes.
And God forbid something like this happens in the near future.
Right.
I think that's a very interesting way of looking how the last 2-3 years panned out.
Right.
Businesses which are purely transactional are not relationship driven. And you spoke about how virtual connects also help us safeguard those relationships.
Correct.
I think that's a very, very it's a very unique way of looking at the COVID scenario.
That's what happened. While it is unique, it was what is happening. Because see, if you were not connected to a customer, you couldn't have called him. Because the earlier connects which were possible was on the landline. In the pandemic period, that landline ceased to exist.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So if you had a relationship, you had a mobile number. Hence, you were able to connect.
Right.
During pandemic, if people had changed their jobs, you did not have a connect with the guy who was replacing them. So, unless there was a relationship built in, it was impossible for someone to. And that's the reason why some companies thrived, some companies managed, some companies did not.
Right. I mean, that helps me with my next question, Radhesh. See, for a company, which is in the mid-market segment, everything is measured.
Right.
Every money spent is measured.
Right.
How do companies, and you may not have a very simple answer to this because it's again a big spectrum.
Yes.
How do they look at technology modernization? Because there are many moving parts to this, Radhesh.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
And their investments are seen directly either by their CEO/MD or by the board if they have one.
Yeah.
How is decision making done and expedited?
Like I spoke about Apalak earlier, the MB segment as such, if you have three segments, right? Three parts to it. One, the surviving, the second, the sustaining, and the third, the thriving.
Right.
In the surviving one, like I said, founders. So, in the founders, rarely you will find a CIO or a CTO.
Absolutely.
If it is not a technology company.
Yes.
If it is a brick and mortar normal company, normal in the sense any regular organization, you would have a CEO, a CFO,
a CMO,
all of them, they will be doing multifunctional roles, right?
Yes.
Now, if they have not given priority to IT, they wouldn't have, done a great job on that part. Okay. Now, when we innovate, that's when they add more cross-functional and other people for innovation. They bring in other people, right? And that's when they learn ideas, how to do things better. That's how they get those people in, right? The CTO, CXO, who help give a charter to their digitization, from a digitization platform and all that. Now, that's something which I was seeing it as happening during this period.
Absolutely. But now just tell me one thing. You give me one very interesting way. I'm taking it a little off track.
Sure.
Tangent. See, large enterprises have account managers.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Mid-market, most of them, unless you're in the thriving sector, and I love the way you actually, I'm going to use it in my write-ups. The ones who are, sustaining, ones who are innovating, and the thriving. The first two, at times they're so caught up with running their organizations, the thought of innovating technology may not come to their mind, and even if it does, they don't know how to do it. How can technology leaders like you help them? Because you know where I'm coming from.
Absolutely.
It's very important for them to...
I couldn't agree more with you, Apalak. There is a paucity of the right kind of people to help these kind of organizations which are self-sustaining and fully dependent on internal, intelligence to manage or navigate through those tough times, right? If you look at these family-run businesses also, they are very, very. You don't find anyone trusting external people ever.
Very true.
I've seen these kind of businesses thrive when it moved from survival to sustain to thrive.
Right.
But they were taking baby steps at
Right.
each time.
Right.
You know, get in a person, put them in place, slowly giving them incremental additional responsibilities
Right.
till the time they fully trust that person
Right.
implicitly.
Right.
Once you have gone into that phase, you're done, right?
True.
So it is all a phase-wise manner is what I've seen there. Now, today professional run organizations have to look at this as a target segment as well to provide external CTO kind of roles for these, a CTO on hire
Right.
or a CIO on hire
Right.
who could come in and help them navigate. I'm sure, a lot of companies operate in that
Right,
way
right,
and they
right.
have on contracts basis, they have people, but I don't see them more often. I
Right,
see them
right.
very rare. And that differentiates the people who are able to sustain and thrive and the people who who stay remaining or who remain only in that surviving phase all the time, fighting their battles on a day-to-day basis. Now, the reason being they are not thinking out of the box. While it comes out as a big jargon, but actually it is not thinking the same way.
Right. Right.
Okay, you're thinking differently to a situation and can bring in different solutions, and that could maybe accelerate your the growth path,
Right,
or accelerate the way you do your business or the way you earn revenue or make more
And
margins.
it's also, like you said, Radhesh, it's how inside out and outside in view operates.
Absolutely.
You may not be a domain expert. So, for instance, we're talking about, say, paper industry.
Yeah.
Now, paper industry gentlemen would know how their industry operates. But with you coming into the scheme of affairs, knowing how the industry operates, you know how certain sets of technology helps them do their business better, which is a luxury, a provision that the larger enterprises have.
Right.
Unfortunately, the mid-market is missing. And I think there's a huge opportunity from an analyst perspective is what I see.
Absolutely, you're right. You hit the nail on the wall. And let me share an anecdote with you in terms of one of the manufacturing companies. I won't name the customer. I won't talk about also the type of industry he was in. But suffice it to say that a very big organization and say around 400-500 employee base, and of which 80% was blue collar and around about 20% was white collar. White collar when I say is more IT related.
Got it. Right.
And they came across a situation. I think you are seeing across the world these days. Malwares and ransomware attack, cryptocurrency issues happening. Now, this customer curiously was had their entire data on a public cloud.
Okay.
He thought he was secure, completely secure, and till such time he received a statement from the service provider
Got it.
indicating a huge jump in the charges. Okay, he was taken aback and he saw that he had not used, so somebody had managed to get access to it. Suddenly he realized that something is not right, something is amiss. And curiously enough, he did not have anyone to rely on within this organization.
Right.
He is the MD
Right.
and
Right.
he had
Right.
a CFO who was acting as an IT head. So there was no clear, well thought out strategy from an IT perspective to safeguard their interests. Their entire ERP and all those things was up in the cloud as well. Curiously enough, when he came to us, we did a survey, we did a inspection, we came up with the report, and we realized there are many companies in that bracket who have not given importance in this digital era to the one and most important thing, which is called data. And as you know, everybody has been talking about data as the new oil.
Right.
There are still people in this world who have still not reached that level of understanding the importance of data and data, how to manage the security around that data. And that's when we spoke to them, they realized, they understood huge magnitude. And that's where I see, like I said, the survival, sustain and thriving different customers This is what differentiates them. They're very clear. These are, the sustaining guys are very clear about their strategy,
Right.
and the thriving guys have already rolled it out,
Right.
and they're implemented it.
Mr. Radhesh, I mean, as an analyst, while I'm supposed to be very neutral about this, but the example that you gave, and kudos to you, gave no names, no sectoral evidence, but we've heard a lot of stories about cloud repatriation.
Yes.
For exactly these reasons.
Yeah.
That it's not about cloud is not the right answer. On the contrary, it is how well planned it is. It's very important that you know what you're getting into, is what you're essentially alluding to. Because like you said, this organization got a huge fat fee for running cloud. And then the question of data, which brings me to my penultimate question for the day, Radhesh. And I can't agree to more to this. When you have so much in your plate, the last thing to be, while I know the importance of data sovereignty, data protection, security is, for lack of a better word, how do I put it? I know I might be offending some of our mid-market friends. Is the last of our priority most of the time.
Yeah, actually it is. Obviously, if you go walk around in your neighborhood, everybody has their house open house, right?
Right.
They leave their house open. They leave their lockers open. They leave their, nobody carries, everything is open, right? Anyone can walk in and take anything. In an era like this, where we lock our houses with multiple locks,
how can we?
We are ignoring the very basic thing in our lives in terms of, from a data security perspective, we have not built layers of security within our organization. There are smarter people at work trying to get over those security layers that you have built. But if you are not even built a single layer, it's a cakewalk for any IT professional.
But Radhesh, tell me one thing, which is why a discussion with you helps is, while we have acknowledged the problem that not enough is spoken and done as far as security goes, but now coming to the more meatier part is, how do you go about educating this lot, and actually putting that foot in the door, but make sure that certain posture is done as far as security goes. How do you go about it?
See, I can talk about the industry at large, but I can only talk about our organization.
Okay,
whenever we interact or engage with a customer, we bring this to their knowledge, and we bring it to them and share with them the consequences. What are the right steps to do? We give them we play out the entire scenario and leave them with the choices that they need to take or make. Post that, we believe they're making informed decisions. That is where you have to. Yeah, that is something which we play an active role in.
Okay.
And as part of doing that, we are one of the few organizations who are rated on the cybersecurity side as well, and who have been specially designated as well as the key product providers in that.
Okay.
I don't want to use this opportunity to we discussed about it.
Absolutely.
But we have been evangelizing in this from an industry perspective, because this particular aspect has to be understood and accepted, and it's extremely important for organizations to survive.
Right.
And hence, anyone who's ignoring security, cybersecurity, is doing at the risk of not just the loss of business, not just the loss of revenue, but probably a closure of business.
But Radhesh, I speak now on behalf of the end user community, the mid-market community, where like I said, I get access to the other side of the story also.
Right.
The challenges of the many challenges that we have, there are process challenges, people challenges, technology challenges. One challenge that stands out, which may not be new to you, is it's also a problem of plenty, Radhesh. The amount of security tools that are there in the market, it becomes a maze to find out what is relevant for me.
Right.
So it's also a challenge that the industry needs to acknowledge.
Sure.
And hence help out your end customers. So I guess it's a two-way street.
It is, in a way, if I were to look at it from what you're describing, if there are so many solutions available, then options are many. But then you have to choose the right one.
Exactly.
We are good at it, right? As a consumer, we have multiple choices for everything, but we do make one choice, right?
Right.
On every product, right? From a toothbrush to a car, we do those choices. We do those, we make those choices and we live with them, right? Now, security is an important subject, right? And hence, maybe if the organization is in its early startup phase or in the mid course, they should engage a consultant who's industry relevant and validated, and maybe take his consult on which are the solutions which are right for them, tailor-made, and also look at what kind of horizon do they serve. Do they ensure that they are taken care of for the next 5 years, 10 years, 15 years? How do you differentiate? You look at the pedigree of the organization. Do they have the wherewithals to last 10, 15 years? Do they have enough cash on board to continue innovative? Because security is one area where you have to continuously innovate, because every second somebody is discovering a way to break your system.
You are as vulnerable as you were yesterday.
Absolutely.
Right.
So, unless an organization has got deep pockets to continuously innovate and come up with solutions, not just for today, but continuously.
Right.
That's something which the
and it's a compelling challenge actually.
Yes.
Nobody seems to have the right answer. It's a movement.
It is a dynamic world there,
and
it is constantly evolving, and hence one has to be, like you rightly said, you have to be taking a decision with not just for today but for the next few years, and hence choice is very clear in such matters.
We're talking about the future. I'd like to conclude today's conversation, Radhesh. And I'll take the cue from your point of view of the three segments of the mid-market. The ones who are sustaining, thriving, and what was the other one?
Surviving, trying to survive.
The first one. Right? So I'll take them as the three pillars of mid-market. How do they pivot from one point to the other? And when doing that pivoting, right, since we would want to stitch technology with this segment, are there some key future, to foolproof your future? Are there certain technology themes or areas that you wish to espouse upon that will help these? Without speaking products here, what are some of the areas that the mid-market actually should be, looking into from an investment standpoint or from a proofreading standpoint, which helps them identify the pivots that they do?
Okay, so before we get there, let's look at what are the challenges that they face typically. Access to technology.
Yes.
Access to finance.
Very, very true.
Okay.
Yes.
If you take care of these two parts, okay. Now, if you have a solid product or an offering which has a compelling reason for their customer to buy from them, if they have a good business case, then I'm sure they will get finance.
Always the case. Always the case.
You have the clientele, you have the finances to upgrade, you will get the candidates also. When you have the candidates, you have the finances, you will have access to better technology as well coming in. Now, with these three, I think you will be able to manage the entire spectrum. Hiring right, having the right technology, and having the finances to manage all those three, right? Those two aspects.
Very interesting. Sorry.
Yeah. So this being the case, if you are able to get all of this in a package, I think this is how the survivor, once he's got the product in place, moves to into the sustained phase, and from there they scale out. From there, that is when they start innovating. When you have right technology being used, you have enough finances to take care, and you have the candidates available now, which is outside of the
basics. And it's very important at times to speak about the basics.
Yes. In every kind of, whether you take any kind of job, it's always the basics that matter. And more often than not, people falter at that level.
Yes. Because, and I'll just probably add to that, because I love the way you spoke of the pre-pandemic and post-pandemic scenario. Radhesh, the pre-pandemic work actually was different from the post-pandemic world. The way we function and the way we work has altered.
Yes.
As an analyst myself, I've heard the term modern workplace for several years.
Right.
It truly is modern today.
Yes.
Because how we work has changed completely. Right. And in big parts thanks to technology. It enables doing what we could not fathom, say, before the pandemic phase, how many, at least I'm talking about India, the market, how many of us conjure an imagination of 95% of our workforce working out of homes? Impossible thing.
Absolutely.
Now, it may not be 95%, and God forbid we are in a scenario like this, but it's a more balanced view of how we look at work. It's an ocean of possibilities which has been made possible by right decision makers, decision taken at the right time with the right technology platform.
Right.
Any last words for the mid market? Because you cater to different industries.
Yeah.
Again, different spectrums. Yeah. Any last words of?
No, I think the time is ripe. I think, if you hear in different forums, we've always come to hear and acknowledge that this decade belongs to India. Yep. I would say that this decade belongs to the medium business segment, because the future growth of this country is dependent on how this medium business evolves, and this is going to contribute a lot to the GDP as well. And thereby, I think government has also taken note of it. They've come up with many benefits, or they've come out with schemes to help these organizations which are bereft of either technology or expertise, skills, you name it, finance as well. To enable them, because government understands unless these people improve, and this is some of the, if you include the micro, small and medium enterprises, all of them put together, they are the single largest job creators in the world.
And the right ecosystem is being fostered.
And if we are able to scale them, just look at the possibilities of how we will be able to cater to to reduce the unemployment part in the world, and plus, yes, we have skilled people, differently skilled, but we have to ensure that they are skilled to the requirements of to the organization's requirement. They are skilled differently. Now there are organizations which are giving these trainings and helping them be ready for employment as well.
Yeah, and we spoke changes, right? And imagine this group of organizations, as they grow, their power to change and the power to give a definitive impact to the economy is so more profound, given the scale of operations that they're currently doing. Lovely. Thank you, Radhesh. It was a complete pleasure speaking to you.
Same here, Apalak, and I think it was, I also learned a lot during this, while I was sharing my thoughts, I also heard from you, and it resonates with me as well in terms of, it is wonderful speaking to you. And thank you. Thank you for that.
It's been a complete pleasure.
Same here.
Right.
Thank you.
That's it for the time being, friends. Hopefully we'll get more chances to speak to Radhesh. For now, it's a wrap up. Thank you.
Thank you.